Hello everyone, and welcome to the Synology Virtual Workshops for 2023. We have a wide range of topics to cover today with multiple speakers, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Before we begin exploring all the different offerings Synology can provide your organization, let's talk a little bit about the company in case you aren't 100% familiar with Synology itself. Now, Synology is a data management company that was founded over 20 years ago, and we created our platform with data security in mind. The goal of this platform was and continues to be centralizing your IT administration and simplifying it to help drive digital transformation of companies and businesses worldwide. Now, for those of you that do know Synology, you probably recognize us from our NAS hardware. We create NAS devices large and small, from 2-bay devices all the way out to multi-petabyte solutions with 300 drives. Now, the Synology NAS hardware offers competitive 5-year warranties, next-day air hardware replacement for all of our enterprise-grade equipment, and even US-based support for all the different hardware solutions that we offer. Now, Synology continues to be ranked as one of the best tech companies in the world and even scoring highly in different peer-reviewed publications like Gartner. On top of that, Synology is very easy to use and deploy and helps reduce your integration and deployment costs. And again, this is all with a goal of simplifying your IT administration to help drive that digital transformation. However, none of this would be possible without our operating system, Disk Station Manager, or DSM. Now, this is the platform that we're going to be exploring at length today, and this is what gives you all kinds of software to begin creating solutions for your organization. Now, all the software we're going to talk about today is included with your hardware purchase. There's no subscription or license fees, and there's also lifetime technical support. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go into section 1, our first portion of today's workshop, and we're going to talk about using Synology as primary storage and how you can solve new and existing challenges by choosing a Synology NAS as your file server. Now, in choosing a Synology NAS as your primary file server, your benefits break down into 3 general categories. First of those being integration. Your Synology NAS will be able to interface with already existing equipment and services on your site. On top of that, your existing workflows for your end users will be much the same. So the overall learning curve when adopting this new file server will be incredibly short. On top of that, you also get access to your data and your Synology NAS from anywhere. And that's not just for your internal users. Your users will also gain robust sharing functionality with other applications we'll get into in this section. Next, you also have overall administration. Synology has a wide range of granular administration controls for your system administrators. So there is not an exponential increase in workload by adopting this new file server. So one of the many ways that Synology provides these benefits to our users is through the Synology hybrid file server model. Now, with this solution, there's actually 2 components. There's a cloud portion that provides you wide access to your company data. And then there's an on-premise portion that is, of course, your local Synology NAS in this case. Now, with the cloud component, you get scalability and access you get with any public cloud. And with your on-premise resource, your Synology NAS, you get the performance and security you get with having that local resource on hand. By using both of these components in concert, you get the best blend of performance and security alongside functionality for businesses large and small. Now, as an admin watching right now, you may have several questions, and we'll be getting into all of these in the rest of this section, like how you integrate the Synology NAS with existing infrastructure like your Active Directory. You also may have questions about how to synchronize data between multiple sites, and then once that data is actually at multiple sites, how do you collaborate with both sites at once and even remote workers that might not even be in the office? Lastly, you might have some questions around user management. Can these users now manage some of their own IT? And do you have to retrain these users now that you have all this different functionality? So to begin answering these questions, let's start off with directory services and integration when using your Synology as a file server. Now, if you already have an existing Active Directory server, you can easily join that domain on your Synology NAS, essentially just pointing your Synology NAS at your domain controller, providing some domain join credentials, and then it'll import all the domain users and groups to the Synology NAS. Now, if you want to access file protocols or other software packages on the Synology NAS, you can do so with your domain credentials if you have permissions. Now, on the topic of permissions, whenever you're migrating from a different Windows file server to a Synology NAS, for example, all of those permissions can be inherited since all of the permissions on the Synology NAS are Windows ACL compatible. Now, even if you don't already have an Active Directory domain on site, you can actually run other packages inside of the Synology NAS to make it a domain controller itself. Now, all of this is done with an aim to make data access easy and simple for your end users. Now, in terms of workflow adjustments for your users whenever you move to Synology NAS, it's essentially a non-disruptive adoption. So the learning curve is incredibly short. That's because you can actually maintain your access methods that you had previously, like mapping network drives in Windows, for example. And since all the permissions are inherited, you don't have to rebuild your entire permission structure whenever you move to a Synology NAS as your file server. So moving on from integrating with existing equipment and other infrastructure on site, let's take a look at some next-gen file serving options with Synology, starting with synchronizing your data. So when we mean synchronizing, we're talking about synchronizing between a multitude of different components. One of those can be workstations in terms of the actual computers your users interact with. This synchronization is especially important for road warriors and people who might not come to the office frequently. You also have synchronization between servers, so between multiple different sites. You can synchronize the Synology NAS together to have data in multiple locations. Lastly, there's also synchronization with cloud providers so that you can have that added layer of functionality and scalability. So let's take a quick look at file server synchronization here in a real-world example. So let's say you have two different sites, one in Seattle, one in New York, and you have different Synology NAS located at each location. Now, you can have a synchronization task actually occur between these two locations. So each location will have a wide range of workstations possibly on site, and they can be Mac or Windows computers. So if you generate a file on one of the local workstations, let's say in Seattle, that can be sent back up to that Synology NAS and simultaneously synced across to the New York office. So whenever another user at the New York office requests that data, that other Synology NAS can then serve it. So that's all on-prem resources, but you can also add a different layer for cloud functionality. Utilizing different software on Synology, you can also sync with other major cloud providers that are available today. So that was an overview of a one-to-one synchronization for just two offices. But what about a multi-site or satellite deployment with even remote workers in the mix? In this kind of scenario, you're going to need things like local versioning and synchronization of those versions. You're going to also need the ability to remotely access, share, and interact with your data, even in a secure way on even mobile networks. And you also want to be able to collaborate with teams across your organization, across the country, or even around the world. So let's take a look at a multi-site workflow example. Now, this can be a little bit different in the sense that we have a centralized location HQ that has a larger Synology NAS that's going to be managing the syncs between the satellite offices. We still have satellite offices with their own Synology NAS in Seattle and New York, and they both have local employees at each location interacting with those NAS daily. So let's say we have a file generated on the Seattle side or more than one file. When that file is transferred to their local Synology NAS, it will then be synchronized up to HQ at the central hub. Then that HQ device will synchronize those files out to all the other satellite offices, which is New York in this case. So now when a New York employee requests that data from their local Synology NAS, they'll be able to reap the benefits of having that local resource on hand. Now, remote workers or workers on a business trip can still use clients provided by Synology to create sync tasks to their physical endpoints, their laptops in this case. So they're still going to be able to access their data remotely and securely and collaborate with their peers that might be still on site at their regional office. Now, taking things a step further, maybe you don't have access to your laptop or you just don't want to open it. You do have access to mobile applications with Synology for that mobile workforce once again. You're able to access and synchronize data to your Android or iOS device. There's two-factor authentication to keep things secure and data encryption for your data moving in transit, which is especially important whenever you're accessing your data across a cellular network. So we've talked a bit about some features you get when using a Synology NAS as your file server. But what makes it so usable in the first place is its simple administration. On the user side of things, they have access to file versions that they can actually roll back to, allowing them to perform self-service recovery. That takes a significant load off of your IT admins. Alongside this, you also have the ability to centralize your alerts and monitoring into one location, allowing you to use possibly limited IT resources to the best of your ability. Next, you also have granular control. Remember, you can integrate the Synology NAS with existing Active Directory domains or create one on the NAS itself. So you can actually manage access to file protocols or other software platforms by users and groups. So to accomplish all of what we've seen today, we used several different packages that are available on the Synology whenever you purchase a unit. Synology Drive was utilized to synchronize between multiple locations. You can even use this to create your own private cloud even. Now, CloudSync was how you would integrate with other third-party cloud providers like Azure, Google, or even AWS. Now, HybridShare is taking everything a step further, and it's the ultimate tool in a hybrid file server deployment with Synology. It uses Synology C2 storage to allow your NAS to become a local cache for your cloud data, giving you the best of both worlds of cloud access and on-prem functionality. So let's start off with Synology Drive. This is the application that allows you to synchronize your business data between Synology NAS or endpoints even. And you can actually set up Synology Drive to be your own private cloud with an accessible web portal from anywhere that allows you to collaborate in real time with users across your organization. Now, Synology Drive has the ability to completely unify your workflow across Windows, Mac, and even Android and iOS devices with mobile applications. There's also granular synchronization, allowing you to control file pathways. You can filter by file type and even set limits on how much can be synced across in any given sync task. There's also integrated versioning, and that's where the self-service file recovery comes into play with Synology Drive. Your users will be able to access those versions and roll back to a previous point in time and actually retrieve past copies in case any edits were made in error. And this, again, will help reduce the overall IT workload for your admins. Next, we have CloudSync. Now, CloudSync is how we added that cloud layer to our previous example. And it's how you integrate with a wide range of public clouds, including even Synology's C2 object storage. Now, in fact, it's actually able to sync to over 20 major cloud providers. And even if you don't see your cloud provider listed, but they're S3 compatible, you can actually use the S3 option to go to a custom S3 URL to interface with that provider, like Wasabi, for example. It also offers bidirectional or one-way sync, so you can set that up to meet your organization's needs. And there's also encryption and compression available on the platform to allow you to securely store and transfer your data even to a public cloud location. We also offer decryption tools just in case something happens to one of your Synology NAS and you need to manually extract that data out of the public cloud yourself. Last but not least is Synology C2 HybridShare. Now, HybridShare is the ultimate hybrid file serving with Synology NAS. Now, with Synology C2 HybridShare, you're actually interacting directly with Synology C2 Cloud Storage. And by doing so, you're actually utilizing Synology C2 Storage as your central syncing hub to all of your various NAS at satellite offices, and it is actually what is populating the NAS's local cache at each location. Now, by using the NAS as a local cache, you get high performance access for your most frequently used data. So you'll have full access speed for that data that is actually residing in the local cache. Alongside this, by having your hybrid file server backed by Synology C2 storage, you have high levels of scalability. And as your data needs grow, you can grow your data lake on demand to meet those needs. So let's check it out. So here we are in our first Synology NAS, and we are already connected back to a HybridShare folder, and we have some data already populated in this folder itself. So let's go ahead and check it out in FileStation to see what kind of data we have in there. Right now, it's just some folders at the subfolder level. Now, we're going to hop over to a completely different NAS and mount the same HybridShare folder, basically standing up a new office so that they can begin collaborating with the original NAS through Synology C2 storage and HybridShare. So what we're going to do is go to Control Panel and click Create and mount the HybridShare folder. This next pop-up is going to be taking you into your C2 storage instance, and you're going to go ahead and allow this NAS to access your C2 storage instance, and you're going to select what folder you want to mount. In our case, if we just have one folder, so we're going to select that one. Now on this next page, we're actually dropped back into the NAS, and we can continue working through this wizard. First and foremost, we're going to need to type in our encryption key because anything and everything on Synology C2 storage and in Synology C2 in general is encrypted. We're going to breeze through the rest of this wizard here. And once that's finished, we're actually going to have access to this HybridShare folder after it's done initializing. And it usually only takes a couple moments. All right, now that that's all connected, let's go into FileStation and see that data now on this other side of the relationship on this new NAS. Now we can begin interacting with this HybridShare folder on either side and begin collaborating between these offices. So I can upload some data here on this new NAS into the HybridShare folder. So I'm going to click this new data folder and drop in all of these files listed here. And once it does that, it's going to upload to this NAS first, and then it's going to begin uploading to Synology C2 storage. Once it's completed its upload to Synology C2 storage, that data will be made available to all the other NAS that are mounted to the hybrid share folder, and that data can be streamed down on demand into the local cache. Now you can monitor this upload speed and queue here under Control Panel whenever you expand the hybrid share folder right here. Now back on this original NAS, we're going to refresh and we're going to start to see all that data that we uploaded on the other side. Now what we're going to do is begin interacting with this data and actually pulling it down on demand. So you can see that we have this Blueberry photo right here, but there's a cloud icon underneath the status column. Now what that icon means is that this file is only stored on Synology C2 storage and it isn't in the local cache yet. But even if it's not actually stored on the Synology NAS, I can still see it through Windows File Explorer, for example, and just double click it to open it. This will automatically stream the file on demand down to the local cache of this Synology NAS. So you can see we have that photo right here and we can go ahead and view that. Now, if we minus this back down here and minimize everything, you'll see that this file now has a green check mark next to it, meaning that it now resides in your local cache. So that entire mechanism happens automatically. As you can see, you can interact with this hybrid share folder on either side of the relationship on any of the NAS that are mounted at a hybrid share folder. You can upload in FileStation or through normal protocols like SMB. Now, what's so powerful about this whole solution is that even though this hybrid file server is powered by Synology C2 storage, your end user's workflow is going to be much the same as using a normal standard file server that might not have this cloud functionality helping it be more performant. All in all, the benefits of a Synology file server are wide-ranging. There's easy integration with existing infrastructure like your Active Directory server. The data architecture offers industry-wide compatibility and cross-platform functionality between Windows and Mac devices. There's remote access, allowing your team to collaborate from anywhere without limits, and administration is simple, allowing your IT team to focus on other areas as needed. So let's jump into a customer story and a real-world example of how one of the largest video game developers on the planet utilizes Synology as a file server. Before we dive into this and the requirements for the project, let's talk a little bit about the video game industry as a whole. As you can imagine, building an immersive environment in a video game requires tons of small components to work together to create that environment. And these small components are what we are dealing with in this project. So to ingest all these small components from all of their ingest servers, they needed high-speed storage, and naturally, they needed an all-flash array. But they still wanted this all-flash array to be affordable and support deduplication, because a lot of these assets are duplicated during the workflow before they're actually ingested into the main Synology storage server. So let's go ahead and take a look at a diagram of this. Now, this organization, again, has several ingest servers across the organization that the assets must pass through before they land on the Synology NAS. Now, this organization went with an FS6400 with all Synology SSDs. So again, there's several data streams all hitting this NAS at the same time. So after this latest round of asset ingestion is finished, there's usually about 90% duplicated data on the system. Now, since this organization went with an FS6400 with Synology SSDs, they can actually perform deduplication right on the NAS itself. And they can actually significantly reduce the overall amount of duplicated data, thus allowing them to utilize their all-flash array with the greatest efficiency. So, taking things a step further, this organization also uses Synology C2 storage and Synology C2 hybrid share. Now, they have multiple locations with multiple FS6400s. And as you may remember, Synology C2 storage houses a main copy of all of that data. And each location can also have a local cache with their own unique data. Now, when a file is generated on one FS6400, it is first uploaded to Synology C2 storage into that main repository and made available on demand for that secondary FS6400 should that location actually need that data. Now, with Synology C2 storage, the FS6400s, and Synology deduplication, this worldwide game developer and Synology can help make immersive worlds for everyone to enjoy.
Hello everyone, my name is Blaine, and I am a technical account manager with Synology, and I appreciate you all being here. Today, we will be seeing how to accelerate and protect workloads in storage environments, namely configuration and integration of Synology hardware into your current environment, storage capabilities of Synology equipment, and the backup functionality included at no additional cost. Moving right along, Synology is certified with the leading virtualization platforms such as VMware's vSphere, Microsoft's Hyper-V, and Citrix's Hypervisor. On the hardware side of things, We have units that are capable of up to 540K to 240K read-write IOPS for those high-intensity tasks. We also have other units that are capable of expanding up to 300 disks or over 4 petabytes of raw space. Finally, to manage all that data, we have units that have up to 7 gigabytes a second read speed, providing all the power you need, even in the most demanding of tasks. For those tasks that uptime is a must, we have dual controller units, where the storage pool is shared between the two controllers, as well as the ability to combine 2 of our units for a high availability cluster, where everything, including the disks, is redundant. Synology's units support thick and thin LUN types, as well as an easy LUN replication to a secondary location to protect data in case of natural disasters. All of our units support VAAI and ODX to optimize network consumption with high IOP tasks. Finally, as mentioned earlier, our units can be combined in high availability to ensure VMs won't drop even when one of our units is powered off. So, let's go through a quick 1-2-3 backup option with some Synology NASes. As you can see, we have our 2 VMs as well as a LUN for VM storage on the primary NAS. We can use an application to back up all of our endpoints above to this on-site secondary NAS, which can then replicate the data to an off-site NAS for added redundancy, as well as send the data to the cloud or to a USB storage device or other hardware for an off-site cold copy. Software that was mentioned in the previous demonstration includes SAN Manager to create and manage those LUNs, Snapshot Replication to replicate the data between devices, as well as Active Backup for Business, which would be used to back up the VM endpoints off of the hypervisor deployment, as well as back up the NAS. As a reminder, all the above applications are available to download in the Synology Application Center at no additional cost. Now, let's get more into depth with SAN Manager and what features are available in this application. SAN Manager includes the ability to create and manage LUNs, as well as the host permissions that connect the two. You can also check the overview for any warnings, as well as the logs to dig deeper into any issues as needed. Finally, SAN Manager allows you to snapshot your data locally or remotely to assist in mitigating malware threats to your NAS. Next, let's go over an example of the SAN Manager working in conjunction with our high availability app to provide no downtime to our VMs, even with switchover. As you can see on my screen now, we have the desktop of our Synology NAS. We can then move over and click the SAN icon to bring up our SAN Manager. As you can see, we have one LUN with about 132 gigabytes of storage on it. This is housing our VM named bNixon inside of vSphere. Let's quickly take a look at our vSphere view, and as you can see, my VM is up and running. In addition, it is running off the LUN on my NAS. Now, let's hop back over to the Synology side and open our high availability app. This is the application that allows us to get all the statuses and details of our HA setup. And now I can simulate an issue with the first unit by manually initializing a switchover to our second passive unit. As you can see, I can now move back over to the vSphere side and see that the VM is still running and has minimal interruption with the switchover. One of the other products that can be used to protect your data is Snapshot Replication. Snapshot Replication creates read-only snapshots to provide ransomware protection while not impacting system performance. Snapshot Replication is application aware and has built-in interval control for as frequent LUN backups as every 15 minutes and as frequent as every 5 minutes for folders. Finally, our third and final program we're going to discuss today is Active Backup for Business, as well as its integrations with vSphere and Hyper-V. Now, as you can see here, we have our main NAS with Active Backup for Business running on it, and we have our different endpoints including Mac and Windows PCs, servers, and VMs. We can use Active Backup for Business to back up all of our endpoints with one application. Some of the other notable features of Active Backup for Business include native integration with VMware and Hyper-V to allow agentless backups of your VMs. Active Backup for Business also includes block-level imaging for compression and deduplication of your backups, as well as flexible options to restore your backups, either via mounting from backup from NFS restore back to the LUN, or even booting on the NAS with Virtual Machine Manager. To recap, Synology has you covered in software and hardware for the storage of your VMs and backups of all your endpoints. Now, let's take a look at a real-world example of our software and hardware being used by one of our customers. Drakewell is one of our customers who specialize in traffic data analysis and was established in the UK. They had some unique requirements based on the needs of their business. Drakewell's challenge was to double the capacity of their VMware storage, but maintain the same real estate in their data center, in addition to running 4 concurrent backup operations, 24 hours a day, with each backup task taking up to 12 hours. In addition, Drakewell maintains a large database of continuously updated traffic information that is constantly in use, generated by roadside traffic data equipment. The database requires low latency and fast responses to serve critical data in real time to enable traffic flow on roads and railways. And here we have a diagram of the full setup they ended up going with, including 20 VMs running on their vSphere deployment. We had 2 10-gig switches providing physical network redundancy to all units. We utilized 4 FS6400s, each with 24 SAT5200 Synology SSDs to store their VMs, with all data being snapshotted over to the SA3400, expanded with 1 shelf to provide 24 bays and 40 terabytes of fast backup target. Should any errors occur on a virtual machine running the database, it can be restored to a healthy version in a matter of minutes from the SA3400. Finally, Drakewell engineers were able to leverage a previous FS3017 system to provide a solid file synchronization tool, as well as a test environment for management and monitoring software such as Ansible. Everything was wired in redundancy to ensure there was no single point of failure in the system.
Hi, my name's Travi, and I'm one of the senior technical account managers based out of our Seattle office. You know, I love it when I get asked to talk about our data protection solutions because of just how simple and straightforward they are. At Synology, one of the main things that sets us apart from our competitors is our robust offering of data protection features and complete backup solutions. We know that there are many ways you and the teams you support might interact with data. Perhaps some of your teams rely on various physical devices like Windows or macOS laptops, or maybe your organization logs into virtual desktops every day. Today, businesses are storing more data in the cloud, especially with SaaS products like Google Workspace and Microsoft 365, and we have the challenge of making sure that we have safeguarded everyone's data, no matter where it lives, so that in the event of an accident, ransomware, or disaster, we're protected. When you rely on Synology's data protection solutions, you have the benefit of a single appliance and ecosystem that can flexibly cover all of your endpoints with simple wizard-based integration and no surprising recurring charges or licensing fees. In fact, the hardware you already own can probably get you started. When we think about things that can adversely affect our data, it's really a few consistent areas we should be focusing on, regardless of what type of industry we're in. We can break this into 3 broad categories: human error, or the accidents that happen within our organization every day; ransomware, or the malicious manipulation of your data from bad actors outside of your company; and disasters that are beyond your control and likely impact your community on a larger scale. Let's take a look at each of these and how Synology can help you be prepared. We can think about each of these threats to our data as affecting us at different levels. Let's start by looking at the user level. When we think about the types of problems our users might have, a few simple examples come to mind. In fact, I think I'm the perfect example. Just the other day, I spilled my coffee all over my laptop, and we know accidents like this happen across organizations all the time. Whether it's causing accidental damage to hardware or deleting a file inadvertently, user-level mistakes are common and have the potential to cost your organization in downtime and lost productivity. Using various tools available on your Synology, we can help recover that lost or changed file via browsing previous versions in Windows File Explorer, a native option that many of your users might already know about. And for clumsy employees like me, you can easily restore an entire bare metal image to new, dissimilar hardware in the event of physical damage. Whether it's just a single file or folder or an entire physical or virtual machine, we make it easy to get what you need in just a few simple clicks. The next area where we should all be prepared is for system-level threats. These will come up less frequently than user-level threats, but the impact on your organization can be huge. In fact, all you have to do is a Google search to see the companies that have been impacted by ransomware in recent years, and many of these organizations have paid handsomely to get their data back from these bad actors. Using the built-in capabilities of our preferred file system, BTRFS, your device can take read-only snapshots of your data that can't be modified by malware. The impact on system performance and space consumption is negligible, so even taking snapshots many times per hour won't slow down your NAS. And with both built-in and cloud-based device monitoring, you can be sure that any suspicious or unusual login and device activity has you notified immediately and the connection terminated. The last type of threat we should consider and plan for is at the organization level. Regardless of where in the world your business is, there are things that could go wrong. Whether it be a building fire, flood, earthquake, or other natural disaster, circumstances outside our control can impact anyone. By planning for the worst-case scenario, you can deploy Synology to account for any contingency. Redundancy in hardware, either locally or in physically separate geographic locations, means that you can quickly fail over in case of a disaster or hardware failure. You can also make sure that you have copies of your data on more than just your Synology devices. With tools to sync or back up to other hardware or cloud services, you can make sure your data is readily available somewhere at any given moment. And with multiple ways to monitor large-scale deployments, we make keeping your fleet of devices healthy and available as simple as possible so you can focus on other things. Now let's take a look at an example of the topography of an imaginary business continuity disaster recovery plan that we often see our customers using. In this imaginary company, we see data scattered across various endpoints, perhaps some Windows PCs, some Windows or Linux servers, some VMs in VMware or Hyper-V, as well as some data in Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. All those different types of data are being backed up to a primary NAS, perhaps in a local on-site data center. The data is also being pushed off-site to a secondary NAS ready for failover in case of a physical disaster. A copy of all of this various data is also being pushed to a cloud destination for long-term cold storage. And just to be safe, we have a second identical NAS at the primary site and high availability in case of hardware failure. Accomplishing this picture-perfect 3-2-1 backup strategy is made simple with Synology's robust suite of business-class applications. Active Backup for Business, Snapshot Replication, and Hyper Backup are the three that most directly impact the threat to your day-to-day data. Active Backup for Business covers all of your endpoints, everything from Windows 7, Windows Server 2008 R2, various Linux distros, macOS Catalina and newer, as well as VMware and Hyper-V. Active Backup for Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace cover things like contacts, calendars, Exchange Online or Gmail, OneDrive for Business or Google Drive, as well as SharePoint Online and Teams data. Snapshot Replication then protects your shared folders with read-only, point-in-time snapshots up to every 5 minutes and every 15 minutes for iSCSI Lens. These can be replicated to a secondary, dissimilar NAS at another failover location. And finally, Hyper Backup takes your shared folder and LUN data, as well as some system and application settings, packages it up into a nice little container, and sends it to a third-party destination, such as an external drive, rsync target, or even popular subscription-based cloud services. Now that you know what each of these packages are intended to do, let's talk about some of the cool features that you might want to take advantage of, starting with the Active Backup suite. With Active Backup, we provide many granular backup and restoration options. You can control who has access to what data, for instance, allowing your users to be able to recover and restore their own files and folders from their device backups, or even their own emails from Exchange Online, while allowing your IT admins access to all user data in order to efficiently respond to support tickets for users that may be suffering from accidental deletion. And when that data is backed up, we offer many ways to protect it, from shared folder level encryption and encryption in transit, to application-aware backups of your VMs with a built-in hypervisor to test the integrity of your backup images. And no matter how many devices and endpoints your organization needs to back up, we help you do the most with the fewest amount of resources by supporting block-level deduplication across all of your personal computer, physical server, and VM tasks, as well as across all Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace tasks. That means you'll save both rack space and money. Let's pull up the Active Backup for Business admin console and check it out together. So this is the Overview tab. Here we can see some important information at a glance. At the top, we can see how many of each type of backup task we have on our NAS. And the second pane gives a quick view at our backup calendar to make sure everything is running smoothly and there are no errors. If there are, we can just click on the date to jump to the logs for that day to see what went wrong. Scrolling down, we have a list of the activities currently running, whether that be a device backing up or a restore taking place. Next to that, we have our last backup time, which can be helpful to make sure no devices have an unusually long time since their last backup, possibly indicating a problem we'd want to resolve. Below that, we have our storage status to see which task types are taking up how much storage capacity on our NAS. And keep in mind that aside from basic file server tasks, we offer block-level deduplication at the shared folder level across all task types, meaning you save space on common data such as Windows system files on PCs, physical servers, or virtual machines. Finally, at the bottom, we have our transmission trends. You can see how much data is traversing your network on any given day or even by hour, and this can be helpful if you need to limit network traffic during specific hours, such as from 9 to 5, only allowing backups to take place in the off hours. On the left, we have various tabs to flip through. Active Backup now supports bare metal backups of DSM, which can be helpful if you want to mass deploy the same exact configuration and data across many similar devices. The Personal Computer tab is where you'll see backup tasks for your Windows PCs and macOS devices. The Physical Server tab would be where your Windows Server and Linux Server tasks would show up. Depending on the backup task type, your options for data restoration will be a little different. You'll notice for Personal Computer task types, we have the ability to restore files and folders or the entire device. File and folder recovery is important if users accidentally delete or alter some data, whereas entire device restoration might be helpful for a physically damaged laptop or PC where the whole thing is no longer operable. On the Physical Server tab, we have another option which is shared by virtual machine tasks. Not only can we restore to new hardware, but we can even select a backup and restore to a hypervisor like VMware Hyper-V. We also have a built-in hypervisor called Virtual Machine Manager that comes included, license-free, on our Plus series and greater devices. That was a brief, high-level overview of Active Backup for Business, but if you'd like a more in-depth demo, please feel free to contact us. Now, let's take a quick look at some of the helpful features of snapshot replication, the easiest way to protect your Synology NAS against ransomware. With snapshot replication, we offer flexible replication topology depending on the needs of your organization. For instance, you can have two sites that both replicate read-only copies of their data to each other, or extended replications, where one site replicates to another, which replicates to another, and so on. We also support one-to-many, where perhaps your headquarters replicates out to satellite offices, or hub-spoke, which is the reverse. And should disaster strike at one of these locations, we give you the ability to quickly restore individual files, entire shared folders or LUNs, or even failover to another site within seconds. And with native Windows integration, your users can even browse previous versions of their data right from Windows File Explorer and do self-service recovery of their data from local snapshots. Snapshot replication also fully supports the data protected by the Active Backup suite. That means if you're protecting your VMs, for instance, and your primary office suffers a natural disaster, destroying your Synology, the hypervisor, and everything else at that location, you can fail over to the secondary site and immediately begin recovering the backed up data that was replicated off-site, even relinking your VM data store to a different hypervisor within a few clicks. The final piece of the puzzle that we can help with is getting all of your data to an off-site location. With HyperBackup, we offer flexible recovery options. Depending on the destination you send your data to, you can either pull out a single file and folder while they're still in the cloud, download the whole container and browse it locally on your PC or NAS, or restore entire shared folders and LUNs to new hardware. And since you're putting data in a third-party destination, likely alongside a subscription, we do our best to make the most of your money by offering file-level deduplication across tasks, encryption at rest and in transit, as well as compression. And while we support many popular third-party cloud destinations, there's really no better option than using our own C2 services. With Synology C2 Storage for HyperBackup, we make it simple to set up your backup tasks right from DSM. If you've never tried C2 Storage, 30-day trials are available right when you set up your backup task. And if you don't have a Synology NAS yet, but still want to back up certain endpoints like your Windows PCs, Mac OS devices, or some Microsoft 365 data, then C2 Backup is a great way to go directly to the cloud, no hardware needed. And we haven't forgotten about our valuable preferred reseller partners. With MSP accounts, we make managing your customers' data and subscriptions super easy with a portal designed just for you. Now that we've covered some of the ways Synology can help organizations of all sizes, let's look at an example. Alabama Cancer Care is an oncology and hematology practice that was founded in 2005. Within their infrastructure, they have a dozen physical servers, about 30 virtual machines running electronic medical record applications, Active Directory, and a number of other programs. Alabama Cancer Care also has over 250 Microsoft 365 accounts with important data in Exchange Online, Contact Lists, OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint Online. They were looking for a HIPAA-compliant backup solution to help ensure maximum uptime and protect against accidental deletion or cyber attacks. So let's take a look at how Alabama Cancer Care decided to solve their data protection challenges with the help of Synology. As I mentioned, they had about 30 virtual machines and physical servers running business-critical applications. They also had 5 workstations used to access services, although not necessarily housing critical data, as protecting patient data is always a concern. They decided on an RS-3621 RPXS as their primary Synology device. All of their workstations could access this NAS and interact either through a web browser or common file protocols like SMB. They then use Active Backup for Business to pull data from their VM data store and those physical servers and create deduplicated, bare metal, bootable backups of each of those systems. And no robust 3-2-1 backup strategy is complete without a copy of the data kept off-site. So they used Hyper Backup to push data off to a cloud destination, C2 storage in this case. So why did they decide on Synology for this project? Well, with Synology, everything is quick and easy to set up. With no licensing fees on any of the packages we've discussed today, they were able to save an estimated $6,500 per year on subscription fees, and their on-prem storage is down 78% due to our space-saving deduplication and compression features. All of this while still being HIPAA compliant. Data protection challenges come in all sorts of forms, from user-level threats like hardware damage or accidental deletion, to system-level ransomware attacks, or even organization-wide like natural disasters. With Synology's license-free packages, you can use Active Backup to pull data from various endpoints to a single location, Snapshot Replication to copy data to a secondary NAS, and Hyper Backup to push it to an off-site destination.
Hello, I'm Brandon Shryack, Senior Technical Account Manager with Synology. Today we've discussed how Synology can store, manage, and protect your critical business data. What about the security of your physical assets or your business's campus? Today we're going to highlight how Synology's Surveillance Station has empowered organizations like yours to manage every aspect of security with a truly all-in-one solution. There are many benefits in selecting Synology as your dedicated NVR solution. Some of our most convenient features include advanced AI analytics like facial recognition or door access controls, the ability to expand and centrally manage your NVR deployment, no hidden fees or pesky subscriptions to keep your deployment current and up and running. Surveillance footage can be challenging to manage, but with Synology's Surveillance Station, you control how and where your footage is recorded. You can record directly to your Synology device and send your footage to Synology C2 for added security. Speaking of security, no matter which option you select for storage, you're backed with the peace of mind that Synology provides military-grade encryption to protect your data. Keep in mind you possibly have the greatest benefit of all. This is all engineered upon the Synology NAS platform. You have access to all of the data storage benefits of a NAS, plus the software tools we have discussed today that help protect your data. Let's take a look at why Synology Surveillance Station can be your top choice as an NVR solution for your business. Here are 3 major factors to consider when selecting a solution for a surveillance deployment. Your business is unique, and the capabilities of your surveillance system should be custom tailored to meet your needs. Synology provides you a multitude of ways to manage your cameras, alert you in various ways to different activity, and easy ways to digest what's occurring with your business. Every deployment is different. The layout of each building, the needs of each location, the needs of businesses within different types of industries, with or without regulations, and Synology Surveillance Station has customization to fit your very needs. Whether you want to see how and where your cameras are in your deployment, or custom tailor alerts and rules for your system, or tap into rich AI features, you can accomplish it all. We can take full control over our NVR deployments from the planning stages to the integration phases. You can upload your blueprints or your plans for your surveillance deployment, add cameras to the map, and navigate directly to those cameras during an event. You can adjust the field of view or the range in how far a camera can see on the map, or the angle in which that camera is looking. If your cameras are outdoors, you can simply add a map for camera overlay that's directly accessible from Surveillance Station without the need to upload any documents. Creating action rules is one of the most customizable features of Surveillance Station. We can layer many action rules to a single camera for an if this, then that scenario. You can build rules to make sure you never miss a moment of coverage of your deployment. Camera goes down covering the east entrance of your building. A nearby camera can be set up to now patrol that area and capture the zone normally covered by the downed camera until you're able to fix the problem. One of my favorite action rules is an audio output from the camera during a motion detection event. You can set this up to have a dog bark as a warning, and we aren't talking about a small lap dog. We're talking about a true guard dog sounding bark. If you have one of our dedicated DVA units deployed, you can also set action rules integrated with our rich video analytic features. The Synology dedicated DVA series has hardware designed to power your ability to really analyze what's important to the security of your business, or how to truly set your customer service apart. As I've mentioned, Surveillance Station powered through our DVA units provides you rich analytic features. For example, you're a logistics company and you've had trouble with theft in your yard. Tracking license plates of your fleet, employee vehicles, or that of unknown vehicles might be critical to the security of your business. Want to be alerted when a person or vehicle is trespassing and not just arbitrary movement picked up on the system? Our person and vehicle detection will make sure you get specific alerts when you need them. Or you can set up actual boundaries within the system so that when people cross that line, you're notified of those events as well. Do you want to truly set your customer service apart from your competitors? I worked with a client who owned a luxury spa. They wanted to use facial recognition to notify them when VIP clients arrived at their business. By the time they arrived at the front desk, the receptionist could greet them by name with a cup of their favorite herbal tea, all due to Surveillance Station. Another concern is, how can my NVR system grow with my business? Or how can I manage coverage outages? With Synology, we can use Surveillance Central Management System to operate a multi-site deployment right from HQ. Need to bring new sites online or expand your deployment? Simply add additional recording servers and have a single CMS host manage those too. No need for additional host devices. Worried about a site going down? With our failover capabilities, a secondary Synology NVR can temporarily keep a down site online until you get an effective reboot. This is again all managed through the CMS host. Surveillance CMS allows you to control hundreds of locations and thousands of cameras, all from a single host or cluster. We can also expand our existing deployment all from the comfort of HQ. You can log in to review cameras in real time at any of the sites your host is monitoring. We'll explore that more in just a few moments. If you're truly worried about a fail-proof NVR deployment, our talented team at Synology can help architect a solution to meet your business needs. We can put your surveillance CMS host into a high availability cluster, bring your remote sites online under the management of the host, and even include failover servers that can temporarily store your recordings during outages, ready to replace a potentially failed recording server. Now let's take a look at Surveillance CMS and how easy it is to use, or how quickly we can bring a new recording server online. Here we're inside of our CMS host, so let's go to the main menu and select CMS. We'll want to open up the wizard so we can find our device to bring online. We can manually do that via the IP address or Quick Connect ID of our Synology NAS. In this particular example, our device is already on the network. Let's select it so we can proceed. We'll want to authenticate our device now with our admin credentials. We'll be met with a green check mark that lets us know it's safe to proceed. Here, we can choose the option to have a failover recording server to maximize our surveillance recording uptime. This particular footage won't really be important, so we'll skip this step for now. Here we see a summary of the settings of this newly added recording server. We'll keep them, but we can change them at any time in the future. Now, we'll want to bring an IP camera online to our new recording server, so we'll want to open up that wizard as well. We can manually add this camera from IP address. It's on the network as well, so we'll add the camera. Here we'll want to rename the camera so that we can reference it in the future, and we'll also want to authenticate it with our admin credentials. You'll notice a drop-down menu that lets us bring this camera online to the newly added recording server. Let's find that server and select it to activate our camera. Here we can customize the specifications and features of this particular camera, and we have a lot of granular options. For ease of use, we'll stick with quick setup. Let's review the summary of the settings of this particular camera to make sure we're ready to save it and activate the camera. It'll take just a moment for that camera to finalize, so let's go back to CMS. You'll notice at the bottom all of the applications that we can manage through our host device. Let's go to the notification settings of our newly added server so we can choose how and where we're alerted. We can get alerts via email, SMS, or push services from our paired smartphone application. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's go to the rules so we can customize how, when, and where we are alerted to any events that might be happening with our NVR deployment. We have a lot of granular options here. So let's make sure we select a few of the options that we want or deselect some that we don't want. We'll finalize our settings here and save this. And now our camera should be ready to go. Let's go take a look in the monitor center. I already have a custom layout designed, but you can customize your own layout at any point. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that we can see all of the devices our host is monitoring and all of the cameras recording to those devices. Let's find our camera and drag and drop into our layout. As you can see with the live view, our camera is now up and running, and any events that it captures will be recorded in the future. As you can see, Surveillance CMS is incredibly easy to use, whether expanding your current deployment or bringing new satellite offices online. Synology even has a smartphone app called DS Cam, that's Delta Sierra Cam, which you can link with your Surveillance CMS host so that you can check in on any of the cameras from anywhere you are without actually using a computer to log into the host device. Or you can use another app called Live Cam to make your smartphone a body cam and send footage right back to your recording server. The last concern we'll explore today for a business considering a desirable NVR solution is the overall expense to that business. Synology has an ever-growing list of compatible devices, doesn't have any hidden licensing fees or subscription models required to keep your system updated. And there isn't a list of proprietary cameras you're forced to use either. This will increase the simplicity of your deployment by reducing cost and adding functionality. Currently, Synology Surveillance can handle various types of devices, like door access controllers or POS systems, and more than 8,000 compatible IP cameras from across more than 140 popular manufacturers. Can't find your favorite camera on the list? We're also compatible with ONVIF protocol, an IP camera industry standard. We work with any devices that operate with ONVIF profiles G, S, and T. That's profiles Golf, Sierra, and Tango. Each Synology device comes with 2 free camera licenses built in. If you already have a Synology device, you can begin testing this solution today. Want to add more cameras? Synology camera licenses are one-time buys that never expire. If your project is temporary, like a construction site, you can recycle those licenses to another project without needing to purchase more licenses. Synology now offers our own cameras as an option for your surveillance deployment. These cameras are fully NDAA and TAA compliant. Today I've shared with you many real-world examples of NVR projects that I've helped work on. Let's take a look at a case study that's a real joy. Let's explore why FunLab, a leader in their industry, ultimately decided to invest in Synology to meet their technology needs. They had a few challenges they wanted to overcome. On one hand, file server needs. On the other, virtual environment needs. And their CCTV, it just didn't provide many of the features that Surveillance Station is capable of. FunLab deployed an RS-3618XS as the host device at their HQ. They then utilized Surveillance CMS to manage each of their 38 branches with RS-3621RP XS deployments. Through Surveillance Station, they then armed each site with dozens of cameras. The RS-3621RP XS is capable of running up to 75 cameras, so they still had plenty of horsepower left over to then manage and control both their POS system and their gaming VMs through Virtual Machine Manager. Virtual Machine Manager is the built-in hypervisor included with the Synology NAS, which is capable of virtualizing a wide range of operating systems. Even though HQ was being used as a surveillance CMS host, they still had the ability to back up several VMware VMs with Active Backup for Business, another included piece of software on the NAS, capable of protecting PCs, Macs, Linux servers, DSM, and even VMs, as you see here. Synology is truly a Swiss Army knife solution, and your business, just like FunLab, can benefit from an all-in-one ecosystem. As we've discussed today, Synology Surveillance Station isn't just a one-size-fits-all solution. Depending on how you architect your NVR deployment, you can take advantage of the built-in features of DSM, like Virtual Machine Manager or Active Backup for Business. We don't just protect your business data. With Synology, we empower your business to thrive.
So we went over quite a bit today. Let's go ahead and recap. We started off with how you can use your Synology NAS as a file server, from normal file protocols like SMB to syncing with multiple sites, to even creating a hybrid file server environment utilizing the C2 hybrid share. Your Synology file server can grow as your business does. We then took a look at how you can use the Synology NAS as virtual storage for your virtual machines, allowing you to create scalable and redundant data stores for a wide range of hypervisors. And now that you have all this data on a Synology NAS, we talked about how you can back it up. From backing up your endpoints or VMs, to replicating this data offsite for failover purposes, to even backing up your data to a cloud repository. We then took a look at how you can take care of your organization's physical security with Synology's Surveillance Station, a customizable and scalable video management system. Now, if you need help past what this workshop provides, go ahead and check out our Synology Partner Online Training page. There's hours and hours of video content there. You can also use our knowledge base, which has step-by-step guides on a wide range of topics. Now, if you need more resources past that, go ahead and send us an inquiry, and our highly trained inquiry team will get your questions answered. Now, if you're a business user with your own internal IT team, go ahead and reach out to onboarding@synologyamerica.com, and we can get your questions answered. If you're a channel partner or a reseller, of course, go ahead and reach out to SAC_sales@synology.com, and we can get you connected with your technical account manager. And lastly, for our friends across the pond, if you have any offices in the UK, go ahead and reach out to UK_sales@synology.com. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning in to the 2023 workshops, and we'll see you next time.